It took me 3 years, 24 years experience and 3 years to write the book. So I'm really delighted that it's almost done. I'm final editing it, and it should be available in about a month's time. It's called This Could Be Everything for anyone who wants to make their tomorrow better than today. And it was my way of trying to bring the roadmap and the insights and the practices that I have taken almost every single client through and I know is relevant and I know they matter.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Rexhen, and today's guest is Susanne Biro, a confidant and executive coach to CEOs and senior leaders with more than 24 years of experience working with over 200 chief executives and thousands of leaders across every major industry. As the founder of Susanne Biro Coaching, she partners with top executives to navigate the complexities of leadership, manage the pressures of C-suite, and achieve both personal well-being and organizational success. Susanne's work has taken her around the globe, supporting leaders at companies like GE, Microsoft, Salesforce, American Airlines, Mayo Clinic, and countless others. And it's a pleasure for me to have her on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Susanne.
Rexhen, thank you so much for the very generous introduction. I'm delighted to be here.
It's a pleasure for me to have you on. So I wanted to look into your coaching business. I know it's been 24 years, but if we were to go back in time and talk about the beginnings of it, what about it do you find what inspired you to start this and become a coach and then have it as a business?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think I started really young as far as I've always been fascinated by how people think, what they think about, how people make decisions, why someone will be successful and another person won't when they have the same opportunities or very similar opportunities. And so I've always just been interested and an observer of people. Very early on, I came across the work of Tony Robbins, and it fundamentally changed how I thought, and realizing just the power of our thoughts. And so I used his work for myself. How can I become ever more effective in all areas of my life, understanding money, understanding my values, understanding my health, creating a vision for myself. And then I thought, as I think naturally happens to most people, especially coaches, is you want to then help other people. And I didn't really want to go into counseling because I didn't want to deal with really serious traumas and things of that nature. I don't think I'm built for that. And then I heard about this thing called coaching. And I hired my own coach. I was an advertising executive, and I found the process just incredibly valuable. I mean, it fundamentally changed how I thought, who I believed I was, what I believed was possible. And so then I went off and did the training, started my own business, and here I am 24 years later.
Amazing. So right now, when working with your clients, and 24 years is a long time too, is probably the type of coaching and how you delivered coaching maybe 15 years ago is not the same as how you do it now. I was thinking 24 years ago, maybe we didn't have Zoom as well. So I wonder if that's mostly meeting people in person back in the day, but now it's a different type of coaching, right?
Yeah, it's we did not have Zoom. For years, I did one of two things. I would always fly to see them in person initially. So I would fly around and I'd be in, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, to meet with the executive in person. And then everything following was on the phone.
Hmm.
And then I worked with probably just thousands of people strictly on the phone. Um, so now we're on Zoom, and that's wonderful. But there's something nice about, every medium has its sort of gifts and then its limitations. And there's something really powerful about just a voice on the phone, even how we're doing this interview, because it allows people to not feel constantly observed, and to feel the sort of natural insecurity that can come with that. So, I used to say years ago, um, my listening skills became so heightened because all I was listening to was someone's voice, and it gave them privacy to have the
Hmm.
feelings they were having, without it feeling so confrontational or sort of vulnerable. So I think there's something really powerful about all mediums. Meeting in person, of course, is incredible and important in many different ways, and sometimes it's not needed. So I think it's what I think it is wonderful about the coaching profession is that you really can choose the mediums of how you want to work, and then just max out the mediums for those purposes.
Absolutely. And so, and it's so interesting to me. You just said that your hearing is so heightened because you've done so many calls. And from my experience, right, I've done right now only like 300 podcasts in this show, more than 300 actually. Most of them have been also in video, and just doing this with you right now, it just seems so interesting, the amount of focus that you have when you're just like listening to the person, and comparing that with like a Zoom call, for example.
Yes, for sure. And I think in person is even more distracting because now we can't help ourselves. We're looking at the person's hair, what they're wearing, their mannerisms, and we can get lost in some of those things and miss what isn't being said. So again, I think that it's wonderful to be in person. It's wonderful to use Zoom. It can also be wonderful to just be a voice on the phone,
Hmm.
um, and maybe have some combination thereof. So yeah, lots of tools at our fingertips these days.
Yeah. And so right now, when going through the coaching journey with your clients, um, what about it would you say you find most rewarding?
Gosh, I think I think this profession is incredibly rewarding, for many reasons. One of the things that I love is, I just love human beings. I feel like people are so beautiful and they have um, no realization of how unique and incredible they are. And so I love that I get to know people, and that I think probably the thing I love the most is that they trust me, and I take that trust in me and our conversations, incredibly, like with seriously, and it's such an honor that another human being would share things that, maybe they've never shared with anyone else, share things that they're confused by or that hard for them to even articulate or to share. And so we get to spend life together, and I get to know people really well without all the phony and the fake. But we get to be two human beings that are sitting together, and I just find it incredibly rewarding to know human beings and the real human being, not not the polished version that the rest of the world gets to see. It's probably my favorite thing.
Yeah, and as a coach, you also get to help them break those walls too, and show their true, authentic self when they're with you. And they don't get that chance with many people. They get to do that with a coach, which I always find so interesting. And so, to dive a little bit deeper into the clients that you work with, we might have the right people listening, which means we did mention it on your intro as well. You work with executives, CEOs, senior leaders. How would you describe the ideal client profile beyond these just titles? Is there some sort of industry, demographic, psychographic? Do they have some common goals or other commonalities that you are seeing?
Yeah, thanks for the question. With 24 years behind me, I believe I'm ideally suited for C-suite leaders of a billion and multi-billion dollar organizations. Um, I understand that world well, the demands, the complexity, and then specialize in really helping these really exceptional men and women have a confidential place where they can be a human being again, where we can make sure that they are well, emotionally, physically, psychologically, that they are taking great care of themselves so they can serve others, because a lot is being demanded of them, both personally and professionally. And then also help them really look at how are they leading, how are they communicating, how are they developing their executive team, what's happening in their executive team, what's the culture of it, what needs to be the culture, how are they going to get exceptional performance out of their executives, and then have that trickle down throughout the organization. So I specialize in, executive level leadership, executive level communication, and then coaching for performance with very seasoned, experienced leaders.
Interesting. And what is it like to work with you? Is there some sort of a program of a certain length? Um, is it like one-on-one coaching? Is there also group coaching? How is the engagement that these leaders have with you if they were to work with you?
Yeah, I work probably how most coaches work is, so I will, usually it's a referral, word of mouth referral. I'll hold an initial session where we can meet and see, introduce ourselves, and then I can learn from the executive, what are you most wanting and needing? What is leading us for you and I to speak? What are you looking for from an executive coach or some development process? And then we will look at, if we decide to work together and this is immensely successful, what would need to be different, at the tail end of our work. And like most coaches, I will typically take clients on for a period of 6 months or longer. These days, I mostly take on clients for a year. And we'll meet bi-weekly with a bi-weekly schedule. So every 2 weeks, we'll meet for an hour. But I work strictly on retainer, so that we can do anything that's needed in between. It's a year-long support of that particular executive, and making sure that they are well, thriving, focused, and performing.
And thank you for sharing that. And it makes a lot of sense too. So, since you're working with executives in billion-dollar companies or multi-billion-dollar companies, one question that comes to mind, and this is not a question that I ask generally, is what challenges do you typically see in these executives in a company so large?
Yeah. Well, one is managing themselves well with all the demands placed on them. Again, both personally and professionally, they're human beings who are often dealing with, they have spouses, children, aging parents, their own health, and sometimes that alone feels like a full-time job. Divorce, illness, we're just human beings, and the older we get, there's lots of problems that life brings our way. But then it's leading their team well, setting a vision, strategy, communicating that well, fostering the culture that they want and need and intend for their direct reports. How do they manage themselves in those relationships? How do they communicate with the board, or advisors, senior advisors? How do they communicate out to the media and or external stakeholders in the community? So it's really all those things, and it looks like a million and one different things, but it's essentially a support system to ensure that wildly successful, very talented human being can continue to thrive and do what they do best.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Susanne. And right now, you mentioned referrals too. So is that, you would say, kind of like the main way that people connect with you, like in terms of like marketing channels? Is that the main marketing channel, or do you also find other channels where people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, well, and I'll answer this to make it most relevant, perhaps to your audience, because I think it's a great question. Like how do we, how do people know who we are so they can benefit from what we do? Even when I started 24 years ago, I remember being very keenly aware that people will. Coaching is a very personalized thing. We're hiring a relationship, and we're hiring someone that we're going to share very personal things with, or we want the freedom to be able to share that with. And so people will hire us when they know us, or they hear about us from a trusted source, and they trust us in some capacity. And so some of the best ways, that I found early on, as far as marketing myself and making sure people knew who I was or that I was out here, was to simply reintroduce myself to my network. I was an advertising executive. I was also, for years, to put myself through school, I was a barber in my mother's barber shop, and we had a really high-end clientele of Supreme Court judges and company presidents, and these were men, because it was a barber shop, who knew me well and knew my family. And they also knew that I was going to university, and I was then had a job as an executive myself. And so I simply started with who knows and trusts me, and reintroduced myself to them to say, here's what I'm doing now, and here's what it is, and then some of them gave me an opportunity. And then over the years, I think it's always been just focus on doing exceptional work, caring about my clients, really caring about them, not as what they can do for me or how they can grow my business, but always doing right by them. Like when it was time for coaching, I felt like we didn't need to coach anymore, I would say, I think we're done. I want you to go and just work with what we've spoken about. We don't need to keep talking. And that's hard to do when you have a mortgage to pay. But when I have mentored newer coaches, I said, don't do coaching to pay your mortgage. You need to have something else to pay your mortgage, so that you can really act in the very best interest of your clients, regardless of what that means for you. And then, in more recent years, I always keep about 2 years worth of salary in my business. And so I don't need to take on any client for any reason other than I believe that I can serve them and serve the success that they're looking for. And so I think it's really useful to have, some sort of secondary income, because this isn't the kind of career that you can, it demands something a little bit more than other businesses, where I think you really want to be free to fire a client. You need to have the freedom to say whatever you need to say to advance a client and to serve them well. And none of us will do that if we're trying to hang on to a client.
You bring a very good point here when saying you have to have the ability to fire a client, and that should not be a decision that then is influenced by your need of having the revenue to keep going so you can pay mortgage, or like your engagement with your clients should not be a decision based off of revenue always. And it's always from what I've learned from other coaches that I've had on the show, maybe even at the beginning of the conversation, if you see that is not a good fit to start with, it might make more sense to say no to some people rather than to have them come in just for the sake of getting that revenue going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the wrong thing to do, which is why, and it's the most human thing to do. But I think it's not, this is a very unique kind of business where I think the work really has to come with us is how do I create a business so that I can be completely in service of my clients and not mix my own needs in there. And I think that's what makes the best is that they somehow find a way to set that up even early on, have a second job that has nothing to do with coaching so that you are free to say, here's what I do. Here's what it looks like. What are you trying to accomplish? What do you need? Let me see if I can be helpful. If I can be helpful, I think I'm a great, let's move forward. But if I can't, or I'm not really excited about working with you, then I'm not the best person for you.
Absolutely. And right now, after 24 years of doing this, uh, if you were to look into the future for the next 1 to 3 years, do you have any specific goals in mind for your business? We were talking a little bit earlier, and you were mentioning also a book that's coming up too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it took me 3 years, 24 years experience and 3 years to write the book. So I'm really delighted that it's almost done. I'm final editing it, and it should be available in about a month's time. It's called This Could Be Everything for anyone who wants to make their tomorrow better than today. And it was my way of trying to bring the roadmap and the insights and the practices that I have taken almost every single client through and I know is relevant and I know they matter, and just offering that to the masses. So I'm very excited. What I hope to do in sort of the next year or so is just give that book the best chance that it possibly has to find its way in the world. I believe that good work does find its way. And so I'm excited just to see where it goes to, and then just continue working with the handful of clients that I work with. These are incredible men and women striving to lead exceptionally well in some really, really demanding times with the AI and the changes that are being thrust upon us even today, and the speed at which they're coming. And as far as I can tell, as I follow some of those at the forefront of AI and technology, no one really knows what this is going to mean for any of us, but we do know there's going to be a lot of changes. And so I think for all the coaches that are listening, I do believe our work is needed now more than ever. Even though AI, there's an AI that can coach you beautifully now, and that will democratize some of the coaching that I think and therapy that I think is very useful. Everyone can access that and start to learn more about themselves, and that's great. But at some point, we will want a human being, and human connection will become so much more valuable than it's ever been. And that's where we come in, because there's something about, you can say all the right things, you can bring all the right tools, but there's nothing like sitting with another human being who genuinely cares about you. And that presence alone is healing. I mean, the way it was taught to me early on is, even bad coaching is good coaching. If all you really want to do is to be of service to someone else and to sit with them in their life as they process something that's happening, either, an incredible opportunity or something that is, a devastating challenge. And you just sit with them and you care and you try to help them become more clear on what they want, or that alone matters. So I think, we're going to be needed more than ever.
Yeah, and from what I've learned so far is that it's an industry that is growing, and there's also an even greater need for coaching than ever before, because initially coaching, and you know this by experience as well, um, has not been as big of an industry, let's say 20 years ago, as it is today. Or let's say it was only for the elites, which you're still servicing today. But right now there's coaching also for levels that are not in the C-suite. There's also career coaching, there's also life coaching, it just goes beyond. And like you said, being there for someone, listening, and uh, pushing them towards that future that they are trying to get to has so much value. And and I'm glad that we're all part of this industry that is growing now. So wanted to ask you also, one thing about challenges. In your case, what would you say is a challenge for you that you're trying to solve for next in your coaching business?
Um, well, I'll back up just a little bit. I think a coaching business is particularly challenging because it's the kind of business that you can't do this work without doing your own work. And you can only meet other people to the extent that you know yourself, and you can only challenge other people to the extent that you've gone into your own depths and your own fears and insecurities and pain. So I think it's a really demanding profession in that regard. So anyone that's here that's doing the work, it's like, I see you, I feel you. My challenges have always been the same, and it is doing my own work. So at first it would be, having some level of confidence. I started when I was in my 20s, and I'd often be in rooms with, executives in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and largely men, because men still are most at the top, or they certainly were, 20 years ago. And so it was my own journey to what degree do I believe in myself? Do I stand by my own convictions? Do I trust my own experience, my own mind, my thoughts, my feelings? Can I stand in the heat of an argument? Can I facilitate a room of executives? And all those things were incredible. I mean, incredible challenges. I mean, I'm very introverted. Um, for me to fly across the world, go down to a ballroom hotel and keynote on a big stage, I mean, I'd rather die. I mean, I remember flying to one offsite, and I actually prayed for the plane to crash. I was so afraid. But I kept pushing myself out of my, the little birdie's nest, is like, simply because I just didn't want to be ruled by fear. But I have been afraid of almost everything I've ever done. But the payoff is enormous. The payoff is, I'm no longer afraid of things that, even scared me a couple years ago, because I just go towards it. What am I afraid of? Let me see if I can do it. Let me see if I can pull it off, because I feel like we need to do that in whatever way is honest within ourselves, so that we know what we're asking of clients. Because if we're going to, one of the ways we earn the right to coach other people is that we are so actively coaching ourselves to continue to work at our next level. And we can do that in sort of phony ways, but we know that we're not really doing it, or we can do it in ways that we really know that we're doing it. And I think we need to do that work. So what challenges have I had? I don't like public speaking, but I force myself to do it. And I force myself to get really good at doing it. Just because I didn't want to be afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
I forced myself to, write the book. I started a podcast. I didn't want to do it. My marketing person said, you need to do this. So I'm doing these things. So for your listeners, it's like, go towards the thing that you don't know if you can do, because that's what you're gonna that's what you're asking of your clients. If you're gonna ask them to work at the next level, then you need to be on your own journey of working at your next level, and whatever that is.
Yeah. What you preach is what you should do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and thank you so much for sharing that. It gives people encouragement to go beyond what they think are capable of. And even just like you, I also think of myself as an introvert, and so I haven't spoken in stages. But even like doing these podcasts, I do speak with many people. Initially, I was nervous about it too, but then just after like 5 of these, I got very comfortable with it. And I've also had podcasts where I had multiple guests on, and that was a challenge on its own. Not saying that that is very close to what coaching feels like, but just saying like being able to go beyond that limited belief that you often put on yourself, that you might not be able to do it, but actually once you see from the other side is that you are always able to do it, and you learn so much from it, and you gain so much self-confidence too. And with coaching, you're pushing your clients towards that too.
Yeah, well, I think congratulations on how many podcasts you've done in just a very short period of time. Because, I mean, and Tony Robbins said this: if make a decision, want to start a podcast, want to start speaking, whatever it might be, take massive action toward it, because in a very short period of time, you're going to get your feet underneath you. You'll be bad at it first. I'm bad at everything I do at first. Most of us are. It's never comfortable. Don't expect it to be. It's going to be, there's so many things that I've done where I was like, I literally don't want to do this, but I just keep pushing the little birdie out of the nest. Is like, no, go, you're going to get it. You're going to go do it. And you're going to see if you're capable of it. And, I think we need to move towards discomfort, because like you said, then you have that feeling of confidence. The confidence doesn't come unless we have done things that we weren't sure we could do, and we don't even have to do them perfectly. We can even fail at them, but it's like, be proud that you went for it, because I think it's terrifying. I see so many things on social media, like, live outside your comfort zone, or jump and the net will appear. It's like, okay, but if you've actually ever lived outside of your comfort zone for any period of time, it is terrifying. Like, it's not a place you can stay for that long. It's really scary. So I recommend it in chunks. Set an ambitious goal, work diligently towards it, and then when you achieve some version of it, or it fails, I want you to be proud that you went for it. Look at what you learned, look at who you became as a result, and then take a little break and have some sort of celebration, or some time to lick your wounds because it was embarrassing and it flopped, before you climb again. Because it's certainly what I've done, because I just like to be kind to myself, because it's hard stepping up in bigger and bigger playgrounds and stages.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's so important what you just mentioned is like celebrating these small wins, even big wins too, but like the small wins matter as well. So I wanted to change the topic a little bit, and um, this is something that is going to be also in our research paper. So I'm trying to get data on it. When it comes to investments that coaches are doing, and in your case, I want to learn from your experience, at least in the recent years, what have been some investments that you've done that you feel really good about? Either you learned a lot or got a good return from, and what have been some investments that you wish you had avoided, if there's any bad investments too? And these could be investments of time, money, or both.
Sure. The best investment I have ever made was to invest in hiring my own coaches. And I have been very intentional to hire numerous ones. I would always change it up simply because I wanted to learn from different approaches. One of my first coaches I hired, and I have this in the book, he was living the life that I didn't even know anyone could live this life. He had three small children, and so he coached executives early in the morning, late in the day, worked across time zones, and then played with his three kids all day. I thought, wow. And at the time, he charged $400 an hour. And I just thought that was more money than I could even conceive of. I grew up blue collar. I didn't know anyone that was making that kind of money. And he was living his life in a way that he got to enjoy his family. And I just thought, wow, that is every version of success. And so I didn't have the money, so I put it on a credit card and went into debt for it. But I hired him and I said, I want to know how you think. What led you to this level of success? And so I've never been afraid to spend money on anyone that I see who's living some version of a dream that I have, and I know that because I'm envious of it.
Mhm.
I did it recently. I hired a personal trainer who just has the kind of body and physical stamina I seek for myself. And I said, I know how to work out. I know how to eat. I'm just not doing it. So I want to know, how do you think? What are you thinking? How are you making decisions? Because you're doing something different than me. And so those were always the best investments that I've ever made, coaches in various fashions of life. The worst investments I've made is when I got impatient and I fell into the trap of someone saying they could, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. I think I hired a company, this is years ago, who said they could get me a whole bunch of Instagram followers. And it was some bot thing, I'm sure. There weren't actually live people. So I've poured money into things like that where it just, looking back now, I think I was impatient. I was getting tired and I wanted a quick fix of some kind of success. But they've never paid off. They were a huge distraction, huge waste of money. I have learned that any success in any endeavor, like if you have a great body or you have great relationships or you have a really wonderful business that you're proud of, these things take time. So now when I see these sort of flashy opportunities, I think, no, 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 that's probably not. Just, stay your course, do great work, care about your clients, and the rest will come.
Yeah. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So especially when you're focusing on these, there's no such thing as quick growth. Oftentimes, these promises, not saying that they don't work, they just might have worked like 1 out of 10 times for some people, and they just keep promising that over and over again.
Yeah.
And like, also not focusing on vanity metrics as well, because like, for example, in your case, even if you were to grow the number of followers, and if they weren't bots, if they were actual people, would that mean that they will all C-suite executives, or were they just like people not from your target audience? And it's like impossible for someone to grow your target audience in a quick way. There's no way to do that. It's always going to take time, reputation, to build that sort of audience. So yeah, that is a good learning that you got there, from investing in these companies. For many coaches out there that haven't yet, it would be helpful to know that there's no such thing as a quick fix.
Yes,
um,
yes. And it for me, it was sort of begged the question of like, what was I really, it comes back to my work. What was I really seeking from that? And for me, it was when I see voices, say on LinkedIn, um, you know, from people who haven't done the work that I've done, and they're quoting gurus. I find it really frustrating. And so, it comes back to like, what are we actually seeking when we are looking for a quick fix? We're looking to ease some pain. And for me, it's better to just go, what am I trying to solve for here within myself?
Yeah, and that's a good way to think about it, like identifying why you're even considering something like this. What is the real issue?
Mm.
And so right now, um, in your case, like you're working with leaders of huge corporations, billion-dollar companies. Uh, Working with these leaders means that you are making a significant amount of impact too. Um, are you driven by impact? And the reason why I ask this is I have a follow-up question. Is for other coaches who are thinking of scaling their impact, is there any advice you'd like to give to these coaches?
Yeah, a really great question. Early on, I decided that I wanted to work with the most senior level person I could possibly work for. And so for the last 24 years, I feel like I've been building the skills, the confidence, the reputation and credibility that would allow me to do that. Simply because working with the key decision maker, i.e. the CEO, instantaneously, when that person becomes ever more effective, the best, highest version of themselves, more focused, clear, healthier in all ways, it can transform things so quickly. Like I had a client who had 2,000 people reporting to him on multiple continents. And part of what I will do with clients is help them write their communications. He gave me communication he wanted to send out. It was in line with some of the feedback that he'd been given that wasn't as effective as it could have been. And so I rewrote it and said, I think that from the 360 we did, I think what they're looking for is something more like this. And then when I handed it back, he said, yes, that's it. I love it. And sent out that version. And it reached 2,000 people instantaneously. And I think that mattered. And that I find endlessly exciting. So it's my way to have a dent in the universe. If I can work with the levers within the system, and so much can change instantaneously. And so that's my way to have impact. I work with just a handful of people every year, but they're so powerful in that they can their decisions impact thousands instantaneously. And so that I find just wildly exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susanne. And thank you so much for coming to our podcast today. For anyone who wants to connect with you or find you, they can go into LinkedIn, look up Susanne Biro. They'll be able to find your profile. They can also go into the website, SuzanneBiro.com, if I'm not mistaken.
Perfect. Yep.
Is there any other way people could connect with you or reach out to you?
The best way, honestly, if they go to my website, SuzanneBiro.com, you'll see everything there. And if you go /book, you'll be able to pre-order the book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Susanne. It was lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. You're a very gracious and warm interviewer. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.